Welcome to another segment of the Jermaine Brown Political Talk Show. Today is Sunday, June the 5th, 2016. Usually I have talks of either sports or politics or of world events going around. But the reason why I want to come out with a session today on politics is because this upcoming Tuesday, okay, which would be June the 7th, is going to be really the final days of the Democratic primaries for for 2016. And why this is important is because you got a heated contest going on between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton to determine who's going to be the party's standard bearer or the head of the Democratic Party heading into this election cycle. Now, really, there is really no suspense. Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. It's not a question of if, it's just when it's going to be made official. Okay? Now, technically speaking, she cannot officially be the nominee until July 25th, which is the day of the Democratic Convention. However, for all intents and purposes, she will be announced as the nominee this upcoming Tuesday because both parties have what they call the threshold. That numerical threshold that once you pass that threshold, you become the nominee of said party. Like, for instance, for the Republican Party, is once you get past, 1,293 or whatever the number is, you are the standard bearer or the head of the Republican Party, which in this case would be Donald Trump. He already surpassed the number. So once you surpass that number, the party usually goes ahead and recognizes you as the nominee of the party, but it's not official until the convention. Well, in the Democratic Party, once you pass 2,100 and some change, you basically got to get the same thing. So basically, both parties act in uniform when it comes to that. Now, why is it more difficult, or why do the Democrats seem to go through this every 4 or 8 years, more so than with the Republicans? Why is their nominating process much more difficult than the Republicans? For two reasons in particular. Reason number one is the Republicans have states that are considered winner take all. So therefore, if you win the state and you win by, say, you get over that 50% threshold, you get all the delegates of said state. And so that helps allow the candidate or the candidates to get to that number a lot easier than, say, with the Democrats. Because Democrats, all the states are proportional delegates. So no matter how much you win a state by or how little you win a state by, you're going to get only X number of delegates out of that said state. Now, obviously, the bigger the margin you win by, the more delegates you get. That's just the way it works. But there are no winner-take-alls. So in the Democratic Party, it is harder to get to that threshold than it is with the Republican Party. So therefore, you usually have elections that really, in the Democratic Party, go all the way up until the last primary day, where usually the Republicans, they usually have their elections, their primaries wrapped up by Super Tuesday at the earliest to as late as maybe May. Like in this example with Trump, since he was so unpopular, it took him until May to really officially lock up the Republican nomination. Okay, again, to technically lock it up. It's not official until the convention, but he technically locked it up. Where the Democratic Party, now I'm understanding why it's hard for the person who is leading to lock up their nomination early, because again, all the states, they're proportional delegates. So therefore, you're not going to get but so many delegates out of these states. So even though the person who's trailing has little chance of overcoming the delegate count, but it allows them to hang around until the last primary is taken. So that's why you're seeing this continual fight that goes on until the end of the primaries. Now, the reason why I said that Hillary Clinton will be the nominee is because she's got about almost 300 more votes or delegates, and I'm talking about pledged delegates, more than Bernie Sanders. See, in the Democratic Party, once you fall behind in delegate counts of 100 or more, you can put it's, as they say, kitty by the door. You can wrap it up. You're not going to win because there's not enough time and delegates to make that up. I have noticed that in the last two election cycles where the Democrats have had primaries, when the candidates gotten over that 100 threshold, they basically don't lose. Okay? And another reason why the process is a little bit more complicated is because it's hard to get to that magic number by delegates only. Where in the Republican Party, it's easy to get to that magic number by delegates only. In the Democratic Party, because everything is proportional, it's harder. So therefore, you need the uses of superdelegates. Now, that brings me to my point before I get back to Hillary. Let me talk about superdelegates. Why they're important and why they have to change the way they do things. They're important because superdelegates, for those who are not aware, they're basically heads of, whether they're governors, senators, congressmen, in other words, party establishment. So therefore, they could more or less shape, when they get behind a candidate, and that candidate wins, they help shape the platform of how the party's going to go moving forward that particular year or so. So they're important in that sense that you really cannot win the nomination without the help of the superdelegates. You're going to need some help of the superdelegates to officially wrap up the nomination because, again, it's very, very difficult to just get there with the pledged delegates alone. That being said, I recommend two changes moving forward because I noticed something in the last two Democratic primaries in 2008 and 2016. And that is that the losing candidate, because the way the party, the Democratic Party, words the usage of the superdelegates, it allows for shenanigans to go on. For instance, here's what they said that the superdelegates can override the will of the voters. See, that's where you make your first mistake. Take that language out of there. Because first of all, since they've gone to this system of using superdelegates, neither party has ever historically overridden the will of the voters. So if that is the case, then that means that you're not going to override the will of the voters. So if that's the case, then there's no need to say that they have the power to override the will of the voters. Because you're not going to do it because no party wants to do that because that basically signifies the death of the party. Here, you don't think the Republicans right now would love to kick Trump out, override the will of the voters and give it to someone else? But if they did that, now personally, if I was running a party, I would have done that in this instance because I think you're dead anyway. This just speeds it up. But they don't want to do that because they don't want to have to, quote unquote, start a new party. But to me, I think they're taking a slower route, but that's another story for another day. But the whole fact of the matter is the Republican Party would love to take this from Trump. But unfortunately, they don't want to, again, override the will of the voters. So in 2008, when then Senator Barack Obama was about 150 to 188 delegates ahead of Clinton near the end, Clinton sent out some emails or letters, basically, not emails, letters, basically stating that the superdelegates, you should override the will of the voters because of poll numbers, because she was polling against John McCain better than Barack Obama was polling against John McCain. And as long as you got that idiotic, superdelegates can override the will of the voters, as long as you got that stand, you're going to always get those arguments. So why don't you just take them out of the superdelegates' hands, that power out of the superdelegates' hands? Why don't you just make a simple rule? Superdelegates must honor the will of the voters. See, now the losing candidate cannot just go to the superdelegates and make the argument that they should override the will of the voters. That's the first change that I would make moving forward if I'm the Democratic Party. The second change I would make moving forward is this. I would not allow the superdelegates to voice who they're supporting until the end of the primaries. The reason for that is this. It takes away the argument that the process is unfair, that the party is favoring one candidate over another. Really, as a party, you never really want to openly, when you got other candidates running in the same party for the same position, you don't want to openly basically state, well, look, I really prefer candidate A. We really want candidate A to win. Because what happens when candidate A doesn't win? Now you got to get behind candidate B or C, but the problem is everyone knows that's not the person you really wanted. So it makes it harder to coalesce around said candidate. So why don't you make this rule? Superdelegates must wait until the last primary is done, or until in other words, until there's no more players in the field before they can go ahead and announce their support. So let's say Bernie was running, and let's say he knew he couldn't make up the pledged delegates because of the rule that the superdelegates must honor the pledged delegates. And let's say Bernie would have dropped out a month ago. Well, then the superdelegates can then, under my rule, go ahead and say, we support Hillary Clinton in this example. But let's say Bernie decided he wanted to fight until the last vote was taken. Well, then they cannot voice their support until the final primary is taken. So the final primary is taken on, say, June 7th, which is this Tuesday. Let's just say the final primary is taken on June 7th. They must wait until at least June 8th before they can voice their support. Now, what that does is that takes away any future, the system is corrupt, the superdelegates is deciding the election, though they're not. The pledged delegates, the people who actually go to the polls and votes, is really deciding the election, or deciding the primaries, should I say. They're really deciding the primaries, but it allows the losing candidate who is salty, in this case Bernie Sanders, to collude with the media, because the media loves a good story. Okay, the media is about ratings. So the media will sit up there and perpetuate a lie, or allow a candidate to perpetuate a lie for ratings purposes. Why do you think Donald Trump is so popular? The media knows he's full of you know what. But the media doesn't really want to call him on it and say, listen, you got no chance of winning. You're just a phony. Boom, get out of here. Because why? Ratings. Donald Trump is a ratings magnet. And in fairness, listen, we may like Donald Trump, we may hate Donald Trump. Okay? But here's what I got to say about Donald Trump real quick. He at least had made this political season interesting. Because imagine if Donald Trump was not in this political season. This political season would be boring. It would be a yawner. But by Trump being in it, he's must-watch TV. He's must-read. He's a must-read. Eyeballs are always glued to him. So that's the one positive I can say about Donald Trump. Now, get back to Hillary Clinton. So Hillary will, with the help of the superdelegates, will wrap up the nomination this upcoming Tuesday. Now, here's what I'm going to say to the Democratic Party real quick. Besides my two rules. Leave Bernie alone. Stop trying to force him out. Yes, now, just so, for full disclaimer, because I don't want nobody to say, Jermaine, you're being a hypocrite. I felt Bernie should have dropped out about a month or so ago. Because to me, I don't believe in continuing running a race when you cannot literally win. That's just my personal feeling. But here's the thing, and this is the big but. You have every right to still take it all the way to the end. The end means when the last vote is taken, not to the convention, to the end, where the last vote is taken. You do have every right to do that. And since the last vote will be taken this upcoming week, there's no need to pressure him to get out. And let's just say, and the networks rightfully will call Hillary the presumptive nominee because that's what she is. Whether the Sanders people like it or not, that's what she is. So then now, here's what I say to the Democratic Party. Give Bernie Sanders 3 to 5 days after Tuesday to basically unwind this himself without no pressures from you. Give him almost about a week. Okay? And then after a week, if he still have not suspended his campaign at that point, then you could say, all right, Sanders, look, you got to do something. Because taking it to the convention is not really a plan. I don't think Sanders would do it, but because he's not truly a Democrat, he's really an independent, you never really know. Which brings me to another rule that I would change, now that I'm thinking about it. If I was the party, whether it's a Democratic Party or Republican Party, I would change this rule. You cannot run under our party unless you have been a member of our party for a minimum of X number of years. So let's say you must be a member of our party for at least 2 election cycles, national, presidential election cycles. Why is that? Because that's 8 years. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Sanders just converted from an independent to a Democrat back in, October or November of 2015. The problem with that is this: because he's not a true Democrat, he don't have the same loyalties to the Democratic Party that a true Democrat would have. Like I knew 8 years ago, Hillary was never going to take her gripe to the convention. Hillary was not going to do that. Because why? Hillary wanted to still be a player. And it would have been harder to do that had she took that fight to the convention. But by just simply relenting, about 4 days or so after the last vote was taken, she gave Obama ample time for him to grab the spotlight. Sanders, he's an independent, really, at heart. He's not a real Democrat. So he could just easily say, you know what, because I don't like the results, I'm taking this to the convention. He doesn't have that same loyalties to the party that Clinton had. And that's what makes him dangerous. Because when you don't have somebody who's loyal to the party, you don't know what they're really capable of doing if they're upset. So that's why I'm saying to the Democratic Party, back off. Give Bernie Sanders some space to wind down, to get his footing underneath him, to accept the fact that he will not be the Democratic nominee. Don't try to pressure him here, because if you immediately try to force him out the race, things could get a lot more nastier. Because remember, he's not really a Democrat. Okay? So then now, assuming that within 3 to 5 days he backs down, Hillary will be the nominee going up against Donald Trump, and I will have another show on that down the road. But it's going to make it for a very interesting convention, particularly on the Republican side. I want to thank you for watching another segment of the Jermaine Brown Political Talk Show. Have a nice day.